And I am the communications specialist for FIT.
La discussion d'aujourd'hui est disponible en anglais ou en français. Vous pouvez accéder
Today's
à
session is available in French or in English. You can have access to interpretation in your preferred language by clicking on the globe at the bottom of your screen. If you cannot see a globe, it could probably be hiding in the three dots at the end of the toolbar.
You can access simultaneous interpretation and your language of choice using the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you don't see it, it may also be located in the More button at the bottom of your screen. We are recording today's session and we will share with registrants after the event. We will be doing another quick poll at the end of the event and appreciate your feedback to help with our programming in future. Finally, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the Manitoba Council for International Cooperation and the Fund for Innovation and Transformation are situated on Treaty 1 territory, and the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. As we are all joining from different parts of Turtle Island and from around the world, we encourage you to learn more about the land that you live on. You can do so using the link in the chat. We'll now pass things over to Christina McIsaac, Director of Innovation for FIT program.
Thanks, Allison, and hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday to you. I noticed that there's still a number of people joining the call. So just will highlight before we jump in that we've had a bit of a glitch with naming. So you might find that your name is not showing on the Zoom or on your screen. So please rename yourself to your name, and so that if you do have a question, we can call by your name. Si vous avez remarqué que votre nom n'est pas sur l'écran et c'est le nom de Caitlin.
If you've noticed that the name on your screen is not yours, please rename yourself. So we can call you by your name if you have any questions.
On today's agenda, I will start by providing just a very short overview of the FIT program. And then we will go through questions that were submitted through the registration. And after that, we'll have a chance to listen to your questions and respond to your questions directly on the call today. So we'd encourage you to ask your questions directly by raising your hand. If you do prefer, however, you could put them in the chat function. But sometimes it's nicer to hear the questions so we can get a better sense of what you're asking. And others on the team, the FIT team, will be joining today to respond. So we've got Janice Hamilton here, the Executive Director of MCIC, and all of the members of the FIT team are joining. So we should be able to answer most of your questions today. All right, so just a quick reminder that the event is intended to give you an opportunity to ask questions about the concept note requirements and the application process. We're not going to go over everything in detail in this event, and so we'd certainly encourage you, if you haven't already, just to go and review the Concept Note webinar and the financial statement resources that we've shared. And you can find these resources and other information about our program under the Application Process tab, which we've put on the screenshot here, and on the FIT website. So, all right. So next slide. So the Fund for Innovation and Transformation is a national program of the Intercouncil Network of Provincial and Regional Councils for International Cooperation, or the ICN, and it's administered by the Manitoba Council for International Cooperation, or the MCIC. And our program is funded by Global Affairs Canada. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the program yet, the program was launched in May of 2019. And FIT funds organizations who are testing innovative solutions that will advance gender equality and empower women and girls. And the program also focuses on building capacity and peer knowledge sharing based on the learnings from funded SMOs during their testing period. So the SMOs that do receive funding are invited to participate in a community of practice and share their results so that we can share them more publicly with others in the sector or the general public. So SMO learnings from previous intakes have been added to FIT's website, and we invite you to view some of their videos and read some of their stories and results directly online. So who can apply for the FIT program? So organizations have to be Canadian small or medium-sized organizations, or what we call SMOs. Eligible SMOs can represent civil society, the private sector, social enterprises, or post-secondary institutions. And to qualify as an SMO, organizations must have less than 2 million in overseas expenditures in development assistance and less than 10 million in revenue. So the maximum revenue does not apply to post-secondary institutions. And also note that eligibility information is available on the website under the application process. And I'm sure many of you have seen that by now. So the funding amount for testing projects, the funding amount allocated for testing projects is between 150,000 and 175,000. And the testing duration is between 6 to 10 months. And for those of you that are familiar with our program, this is a shorter testing period than we've had in previous intakes. So just something to take note of. And our application process has a few phases. The first, or once you've just determined your eligibility, the first phase is to submit a 5-page concept note and additional questions on our online application system. And if you're selected to move forward, you'll then be required to develop a full and more detailed proposal of approximately 20 pages if in English and 22 pages if it's written in French. So some key dates to be aware of. So concept notes are due on Wednesday, June 12th at 1 p.m. Central Time. We plan to get back to applicants with decisions on whether you've been shortlisted by early August 2024. Full proposals will be due around September 25th, 2024, and we'll send out decisions by early November 2024. So dates are, of course, subject to change, and if they do, we'll update our website accordingly. We do expect that organizations need to be ready to begin testing no later than January of 2025. So just please keep this in mind as you plan your testing timeline and budget in your project overall. And note that final reporting will be due no later than November 15th, 2025. So we're hoping that assists you in planning your budgets and your testing timeframes. And just a couple of tips for you after you submit your concept note. So we do recommend that you submit your application early. The online application system will close promptly at 1 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday, June the 12th, and it won't accept late submissions. So if you don't have reliable internet or you may have other technical challenges, it's a really good idea to submit your application even a day or two early, just to avoid any last-minute tech issues. And then we should be able to support you if you run into that. A reminder too, another tip is just a reminder that you can save as you go in the online application system. So there's nothing stopping you from uploading your financial statements or your articles of incorporation immediately before you finish your submission. Note that FIT does not support organizations who are implementing projects. So in your application, make it very clear to us what you will be testing and what innovative solution, I guess, you will be testing and how you plan to advance gender equality with this solution. So a key component of the FIT projects is there has to be an aim to advance gender equality. And so this goes beyond simply having women and girls as your target participants. So we have many resources on gender equality on our website, and we'd certainly encourage you to reference them. Specifically for the concept note, we would encourage your organization to conduct a rapid gender scan so you can better understand and explain the barriers that you'll be responding to. Just another tip, just to follow the concept note guidelines and instructions in the online application. And have someone who doesn't know your project intimately to review your submission, just to ensure it's easily understood by someone who is not on your project, and that you paid attention to the details that being asked. And finally, we have a number of resources or tools that are listed on the website or right directly on the concept note guidelines that might help you with your innovation planning, including the rapid gender scan, the testing framework, among others. So we'd certainly invite you to get in there, review them, download them if you haven't done so already. And that just brings us immediately to the question and answer period. So we would love to answer your questions. And we thought we would just get started with a few questions that came through the registration. And then we will jump right into your questions right on the call. So please raise your hand and we'll call on you and you can unmute yourself, and we'll do our best to answer your questions today. And if for some reason we can't, we'll get back to you post-event. So with that, I will pass that to, I guess, Annette. Hi, Annette.
Hi, Christina. So yeah, we'll start off with a question from the registration. And it says, can you better define what is meant by innovation?
Sure. And that's, this information is on our website, but the FIT program uses Global Affairs Canada's definition of, pardon me, development innovation, which states that innovation is a process, a mindset, and a means to enable new or improved locally driven solutions for better results and greater impact, which benefit and empower the poorest and most vulnerable people, including women and girls. So an example of an innovation, examples of that could include business models, it could include policy practices, approaches, partnerships, technologies, finance mechanisms, behavioral insights, or other ways of delivering services and products. So there's a range of things. It's we're not necessarily looking for something very, very specific.
Thank you, Christina. Another question is, as indicated, the innovation should take place between 6 to 10 months. Does that include the reporting period?
Yeah, so we have a very tight time frame for the testing for intake, this particular intake. And the testing time frame does not include the reporting period. So the reports, the financial and the narrative reports, the final financial and narrative reports will be due on November 15th, 2025. So depending on your project, testing will probably have to be completed in October 2025 to allow you the time to do your reporting. So again, depending on your project, you might have to finish earlier. And so you should just understand this time frame to reflect sort of your reflect your costs in the budget, and also how you'll manage that time during the project.
Okay. And I think at this point we can switch to a question from the audience. We have Rachel Morrison. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for taking the time to give us this Q&A webinar today. Our organisation, Good Neighbours, we have a number of offices around the world. Many of our locations might be appropriate for this fund. So I'd like to ask if you have any specific geographic allocation of funding. For example, I've seen funders in the past say they'd like to give 50% of the funds to Sub-Saharan Africa. Is there anything like that in place this time?
Yeah, that's great question. And that is an overarching goal of our program, is to support 50% of projects in sub-Saharan Africa or in African countries. But that's programmatically. And so other than that, we don't really have we don't have quotas per se as long as the country is eligible to receive grant money from Canada. And so there's also a list of countries that are not eligible for funding that's listed in the eligibility criteria. So overarching goal of our program is to support, and but that's done in an aggregate. So we're very much there so far with our program. So if people were doing projects outside of that region, we will certainly be looking at them as well.
Okay,
I'm not sure if that helps. I hope I haven't made that less clear.
No, that's clear. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rachel.
No. Okay, I don't see any raised hands here, so I'll go back to the registration questions. Can an organization submit more than one concept note for this intake?
So it is, in short, it is possible for an organization to submit more than one concept note. However, FIT will not be supporting more than one project per organization per application round. So we don't really encourage multiple submissions from an organization, from the same organization in a single call. We prefer it or maybe recommend that you focus on the strongest submission and the most impactful idea to maximize the effectiveness of your application. So I guess technically you could, but we'd recommend that you try and submit the best idea.
Thank you, Christina. I will go back to the live questions. I have someone with the name Caitlin Roney. If you could rename yourself, but you can go off mute and ask your question.
I'm not sure if I'm the one, but I'm going to speak. I had a little trouble with the 3 dots in the bottom right corner. There wasn't an option to rename me, but I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Anne Burgoyne. I work for an organization in Canada, a small organization where we work and connect with folks in Uganda. And we want to submit a proposal, but we have never worked with your organization before. And I didn't know if there were contacts in your organization that we could talk to get information about some details of, with respect to our financial records, how much detail do we need to submit for that? Things that you don't need to answer probably right now. But we have questions that are specific. Is there a contact that we could talk to about this?
Yeah, and we can take this offline and certainly, and yeah, obviously we would like you to get into the application and have a look at all the content there, and that should probably provide you with some pretty good guidance at the concept note stage. But certainly we can take your questions offline. And in fact, you could send an email to the real Caitlin Rooney, whom we do love Caitlin, so we're okay having multiple versions of her on the call. We can provide you with that information in the chat. In fact, we've got an info email there. So
perfect.
Maybe we'll put that right in the chat now and you can find that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and our next question will come from Shaka. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
You're correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shaka. My question relates to some of the requirement documents that have been required in the submission of the application. And one of which is the articles of incorporation. For us that are registered as a small organization in Alberta, we have different ways that organizations have been registered sometimes. And so when you register as a charitable organization, you are not required to submit articles of incorporation, but then the government issues you a certificate, which is called certificate license or something like that for your organization. And so in completing the application, and if you don't have the articles of incorporation, would you be required to provide one or just provide your certificates of registration?
I think that would be okay. And Janice, when I'm done, if you'd like to jump in, I think that would be okay. And maybe if you could put a little explanation on that, just to say the specific situation in Alberta is that we're not required to have this to register as a charity, but we have this documentation. I think that would be fine. And I think you would also have a business number or
Yes.
yeah, so that would also, if you have that in the online application as well, if we've got that information, I think that would be enough. Janice, am I speaking out of turn?
No, I think that's fine. And just to clarify, you are registered as a Canadian charity, like with.
We are registered as a charitable organization in Alberta.
So it's society.
It's called charitable organization, which is different from a charity. It's a civil society organization.
Okay, so you're not. So from the federal government's point of view, you're not a charity.
No.
Okay. But yeah, I think we can follow up on that. But I imagine if you're registered in Alberta it's at the society's branch or whatever, that's probably fine. But basically that you're an existing organization is what we want to understand.
Establish. Yeah. And maybe Shaka, we could just get your information post-event, and we'll just follow up on that with our Director of Finance was unable to be on the call today. But we'll just follow up with that. If there's a problem, we'll let you know.
Yeah, I sent you an email like last week already, Cristiano.
Oh, okay. Did we?
Yeah,
and we didn't answer?
No, you haven't responded.
Okay.
Yet.
Okay. So we've got it in there. Okay. Thank you for calling that out. We will get back to you then. If there's an issue, we'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have our next question from Sylvia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's like my screen got shrunken a weird way, but I could unmute myself. Thank you very much. I'm Sylvia from Kairos, Canada. I am the Latin American coordinator for programs and partners. And I have a question from something that you mentioned at the very beginning. When you said that this is a pilot project, you mentioned that you don't have to have a project running already with the partners you want to submit an application for. And this is because partners in Kairos, we have a long time relationship with them. For many, many years, we work with several partners. So I want to clarify that. Should we or won't have a project already going on with these partners when we submit a proposal involving some of these partners?
Thanks for the question, Sylvia. So I think I understand it correctly. So you do not have to have a project in the works with your partners. So this can be a brand new initiative to test a solution, and it doesn't have to be part of something that already exists. I guess if it was a part of something that already exists, we would need to really understand what that looked like, and why you were seeking funding to test something. But I think that's quite possible as well. So I think both options are possible, but it's certainly not required that you have a project already underway. This can be a brand new project, but remember that it is a testing project and not an implementation project. So, and it's meant to be short-term for you to collect information and data to help you decide if this idea is making sense. So.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much. Because one of the things that worries me is that this year we will start a short period bridge program funding for partners, because we already finished a really big program from finance partially from Government of Canada. So this is an interesting year because it's just a short-term bridge funding, and then next year we will start from zero. this is a really good moment for us to think about a project like this. So it's okay, great. So
Okay.
we will do something this year.
And Sylvie, if I could just add, you've checked to make sure you fit an eligibility of an SMO. So that's also something that is important to make sure you fit our eligibility before you go through a lot of work of deciding what your testing project should be. So if and so for you, it would be less than like that you've spent less than 2 million last year in your ODA, like your overseas work last fiscal year.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Janice. That's a great reminder to everyone on the call that make sure that you do meet our eligibility requirements before you start working on your concept note. And we'll take our next question from Lila.
Yeah, thanks so much. My name is Leela,
Leela.
and I was wondering about the testing part. Are you wanting projects that are just doing one iteration of testing and then learning from that? Or are you hoping for projects that do like a month-long test and then we do 6 or 8 iterations of the testing? Like, are you looking for multiple testing iterations or just for 1 or 2?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's really project specific. We allow, I guess it depends what you're hoping to accomplish. So I'm not sure if you're testing something like technology or something of that nature, but what we found for our project so far is that they do need a number of months to do their testing and to lay the groundwork for that. So we provide between 6 and 10 months to do the testing. If your testing only took a month, we may suggest that you provide yourself with some more time to ensure you're incorporating the gender equality aspect of that work. But again, I guess without knowing your project and exactly what you're trying to achieve, I'm not sure. This is the first time I've been asked if it could be done in one short cycle. So I think 1 cycle makes sense, but I think if you require a number of cycles to test different components or different indicators, then you would have up to 10 months to do that work. So you could plan a testing project accordingly. And so I'm not sure if that's helpful to you, or if I'm making, is that clear or is that helpful to you, Leela?
Yeah, so just to confirm then, there's no requirement for like you have to test this project 3 times within this span of 6 to 10 months. Like it can just be 1 iteration of the project that we're testing, right?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Fantastic. Do you have a preference for multiple testing iterations?
I don't think so. I think it would really depend on your project and the case that you're making to do and how to do the work. So I think we'd kind of need you to lay the groundwork for us at the concept note stage so we understand your rationale for the timing that you've chosen and also your budget, I guess.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
We'll move on to Natasha.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks for the call. It's great to be able to speak to real people and ask questions. A question about eligibility. So the top and the higher end, we're looking for less than 2 million as an organization size-wise. Is there a lower end? So we're a newer organization. I'm just wondering if being too new and too small would disqualify us.
I don't know if it would disqualify you. I guess it depends how new you are. Like, did you just open your doors or whatnot? But if you've got some record of financial background, like that you can share as part of your application, that will certainly give us a sense of your work and this, sort of where your organization is at. So yeah, like I don't know that we necessarily have a minimum. Janice, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that. But I think we're open to younger organizations applying, as long as you can provide some of the details in the back end so we can understand where your organization is at and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. I think Christina covered it. And
Yeah.
there again, it just depends on when we see the information and that sort of thing, I guess.
Okay, and then small follow on. So for these little points that we want to clarify, is there any place in the application where we can add a bit more detail? Because it seems like we're limited in the space. But if we want to clarify certain things that might be curious, is there a space where we can do that?
Well, you could clarify that in the financial section of the concept note, or you could clarify that in the other section. So there's the financial narrative. There is a spot for a financial narrative. So if you did want to provide a bit of context to how your budget is laid out, and also maybe your organization, you could, because it sounds like that probably wouldn't take up a lot of space either. Or there is the other section, which would allow you a bit of space for that too.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, is that helpful, Natasha? Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks.
Okay.
We have Philip. Philip, you can unmute yourself.
We didn't hear you, Annette, if you said
Oh.
something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just saying, next we'll have Philip.
Great, thank you very much, and thanks again for this meeting. I just want to follow up on the eligibility question. It's such an important area, and we've done some surveys of other calls with multiple donors, and sometimes up to 30% of the applicants can be ineligible, and it's just so unfortunate when that happens. So really, really important to clarify. So I have a question about that. My question is, can a post-secondary institution that is eligible and wants to test something act as a lead and partner with a larger INGO and non-SMO that has a country office in the target country to act as their on-the-ground tester? Is that format okay?
Well, would the university, how would the university be involved? Just at the contract stage?
They would be the researchers. So
Okay.
they would be the principal researchers, but to get that on-the-ground access, other than traveling out there, they would act through an entity on the ground, but may happen to be a non-SMO.
We've certainly
Jen?
had that in the past.
Yeah, we have had
Yeah,
that.
because
Okay.
it's the INGO may not, like, it's the local office of, say, a CARE or a World Vision or
Yeah.
something like that. So we have had some examples of that. The key
Okay.
part is that it's someone that's on the ground and working there. I mean, ideally, we like it also to be, women's rights organizations and that sort of thing, but would not make it ineligible.
Terrific. Okay, great. Well, thank you for the clarification. Great.
Okay, we'll have our next question from Pamela. Pamela, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, hi. I'm from the Pantera Educational and Cultural Training Society. And my question is, how many projects do you hope to fund through this round?
Thanks, that's a great question. We are expecting to fund between probably 9 and possibly 10. And it depends on the applications that come in and that get to the final stage and how much money is being requested. So, 9 to 10.
Thank you so much.
Which is about what we did each of our other intakes. We're somewhere between 8 and 11, etc. So it's not that far off.
Okay, and we have a question in the chat. It says, are CVs required for the people? So maybe that's for the team. That's being asked.
Yeah, we don't require you to add CVs at the concept note stage, but we would like to know like who the experts are or the people that compose your team are. So if you have a gender equality expert on your team or working as someone in the local partner organization or the monitoring component of your team. We'd like to understand who they are and why they're part of the team. So it doesn't, we don't require a CV at this point in the process, but we definitely want to understand who are the people that you're putting together for this particular project and where they're located, I guess.
Okay, we'll have our next question from Marie-Hélène.
Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour. Oui, on t'entend.
Merci.
Yes, hi, we can hear you. When we talk about the number of funded projects, I'd like to know the average of the other intakes, the number of projects funded versus the number of applicants. And the number of applicants at the first stage for the conceptual document, and then for the next stage. What is the ratio for each intake? What are the chances of success?
Je peux dire qu'à chaque appel, nous avons reçu
I don't have the specific ratios, but I can tell you that for each intake, we had a different number of applicants. I think we got between 55 and 75 applications for the first 5 intakes. So we anticipate getting a similar number for the 6th intake, between 50 and 75, but we don't know. We choose about 20 projects for the first stage. I think we picked between 18 and 22. So we'll probably pick between 18 and 22 for the proposition. And then from those 18 to 22, we pick between 9 and 12. And then for this call, we'll be picking between 9 and 10. Out of 75 documents, conceptual documents, we will choose about 20 for the proposition and then about 9 for the final stage for the program.
We have another question from Shaga, or did you just forget to raise your hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have one question here. And it relates to partnership. I know that the narrative on the website talks about having a local partner. I just wanted to know, are we limited to just one partner, or one project proposer could work with a consortium of other organizations at the local level?
Yeah, I think you can work with the consortium of organizations. It's what makes sense for your project. But we've kind of stressed the local partner. What we've seen with past projects is organizations that have like good partnerships in the countries where they're doing the testing and have really benefited from the expertise of people working there. And so if you have a few organizations that you're working with, that's fine. And I think just at the concept note level, help us understand why you're setting up the project the way you are. And so that's what we're trying to understand in reviewing your concept notes, is who are the people that will be involved, and what are they bringing to the table, and what kind of expertise are they providing to help with this particular project.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah.
Okay, we'll switch to a question in the chat. This one is about our letters of support needed. And I'm assuming that's for the local partners, if I'm correct.
I don't think we need a letter of support at the concept note stage. I think at this stage I mean, I suppose you could add it in, but I don't even know if we have a spot for that at the concept note
No, we
application. I don't think
don't.
we don't. Yeah.
Don't.
So I think at this stage, we don't require that. I think at the proposal stage, if you get to that level, then we might ask for you to include that. But I think at this point, it's not required.
Okay, then we'll move to a question here. Fidel.
Oui, bonjour. Moi, je voudrais savoir, est-ce que
Yes, hi. I'd like to know, can a new organization without any experience, may they apply for this intake? Yes, it depends on the organization. Yes, you can apply on this intake. You just need to make us understand your financial statements, your experience. And unless you are aligned, as long as you are fitting the criteria, the eligibility criteria, there shouldn't be any problems. When you say brand new, do you mean for just a month or for a few years? For a few years. Okay. Because with 2 years, you can give us your financial statements. You have this type of documentation, and that can give us an overview of your organization.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a question in the chat, and this is from CTF. So they've already received funding from FIT. And their question is, because the time frame is so short, they want to understand if they can use their previous project as a base for a new project in another country, or if it needs to be something brand new from what they did previously.
Yeah, I think it's up to organizations applying to make the case in your application why this is an innovative solution. So if this is innovative because it has not been used or tested in another location or another country, I think that would probably make the case. So I think it's quite possible to use information that you learn from a previous project or a testing project to lay the groundwork for another testing project for sure. And that seems to make sense to me anyway, on the surface.
Okay, we have another question in the chat, and it says, is it mandatory that the minimum amount an organization can ask for is less, is it mandatory that the minimum amount an organization can ask for can be no less than 150,000?
I don't think I've ever received a question like that before. I think you could ask for less. And I don't think that would be a problem. That might be, I think as long as you're meeting the needs of your budget, like your project can be well funded, because once you won't really be able to adjust that if you did get funding to get more money afterwards. But Janice, maybe I'll call on you. I don't know that we've received a request like that before, a question like that. Would there be any concerns?
I don't think so. I think as Christina says, as long as it matches, and I think this is our 6th time. So initially we might have been that might have been an issue, but yeah, I think it has to be that you can do what you want to test with the amount of money you're asking for.
Yeah, and I guess I'll add report as well. So making sure you've got the right people on your team that can kind of participate in the elements of the program required. But yeah. Okay, thanks, Janice.
Okay, I also go to a question. Okay, we have a raised hand. Shaga, is that a new question? Shaga, is that a new question?
No, no, no,
Okay.
no.
Okay,
Let me
you
just
forgot
lower my
to.
hand, sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll go to the chat. Let me see here. So there's a question. It says, we are a new organization. We're a new organization. However, we, the founders, have great experience of international work, and also our local partner has the funding expertise. Are we still eligible for funding?
Yeah, I think if you're a new organization, I think that's still okay. You just need to provide us with the, you have to make sure you meet other eligibility requirements for the project, and make sure to submit the proper documentation as part of the application process. And again, there's a part in the concept note section that talks about who are the people involved. So it's important to share when you are a small organization, who's involved and what kind of knowledge and expertise your teams bring. So, yeah.
We have another question in the chat, and is there any key important differences between the past FIT funding rounds and this one, or any key lessons that were learned in the past rounds on how innovations were designed and tested that could support new applicants?
Gosh, that's a good question. Certainly, I think, and I think our team would agree with this, that one of the pieces that we did learn was that organizations that had local expertise and were working with organizations from the testing country certainly did better in a lot of ways, because they had a lot more knowledge. There was more involvement within communities in designing the solution. Just overall, it provided a lot more depth to the work. One of the main changes for this intake is that we have a very tight time frame, a maximum of 10 months to do testing, and then providing some time to do maybe an extra month to do reporting. So the time frame doesn't have much flexibility, unless of course you made the testing time frame even shorter than 10 months. So that's maybe a bit of a change that I would maybe highlight. And we do know that the tighter testing can be challenging in some contexts, because there's lots of things that can occur. And it really depends on whether an organization, whether there are strong partnerships with the Canadian and the local partners. And some of that relationship is already built, I think definitely helps in the process, especially when you're doing short-term work. So I don't know, Janice, or maybe someone else on the team would like to add something to that. I don't know if anyone is.
Take that as a no. And
take that as a no, yeah.
And I'll ask Efemina to unmute and ask a question.
Thank you, Annette. My name is Efemina. I'm from Loops Canada. So I want to ask a question, right? How's the funding amount determined for each project? Is it based on, the project size, or, the project impact, or some, other factors, right?
Well, I think we look to you to develop your budget, right? For your testing work and what you're going to need. I guess we're probably looking for what makes sense for the 10-month testing period or 10.5 months testing and reporting period. So like what kinds of people do you have on your team for salaries? Do you require any space rented in the country where this is going to be testing? Are there other capital needs required? So we're really looking at you to develop your budget, and your budget, they will look different with every project. So I don't know, Janice, if you could add to that, if there's something more to say there.
Yeah, I think each project is looked separately, so it's really hard to give overriding ones. As for how we select the projects, it's those that have an innovative solution to advance gender equality. You know, they're working with a local partner, it's locally driven, and coming up with that solution and wanting to test it. And it's looks that it's reasonably can be tested within this shorter time frame. So, I mean, for overall impact, I mean, you know, it doesn't mean that someone that is impacting 800 people would be looked at differently than someone that's impacting 150 or something. So it's not necessarily numbers in the number of participants in your testing program. So I think it's overarching, and as we've learned over the five intakes, very different types of projects that we're testing and that sort of thing. So we try not to say that it give definitive things that won't be acceptable, because we know that some of the really interesting innovations, you know, have looked really different than 6 of the other ones that we would have looked at in that intake, I think.
And I see a question in French. Do you want me to read that one out from the chat?
Oh yeah, you can read it out from the chat. I had the translation, but it's okay.
Oh, do you have? Okay, well, I could read in French. So, so la question est de savoir si
So the question is to know if the cost of our project goes over 175,000, can we find other partners to fund our project? Would FIT accept co-funding? The answer is yes, you may. But it must be specified before the testing period in January 2025.
If our testing project is over 175,000, can we get funding from other sources? And the answer is yes. However, you do need to be ready. You need to have that in place and ready to start your testing work by January 2025 is the answer. Okay.
Okay, we have another question in the chat, and that's, is there any limitation on applying for a project in a multinational initiative? So that's basically like they're asking if they can test in more than one country.
We have had that before, but I'm not sure I would actually recommend that given the short time frame that we have. We would definitely want you to be able to finish on time. There won't be any extensions allowed for this intake. So I think when you do test in 2 countries, you're running into potentially 2 very different challenges that could occur. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I'm not sure I would recommend it given the tight time frame of this. If you do decide that that's something you would want to do, you just need to explain that in the concept note and the rationale for that and how you think it would work, and that your budget, you know, aligning your budget obviously with both projects as well. Janice, I don't know if you'd disagree with me or on that, but.
No, I would agree with what you said, Christina.
It's very case specific, of course, when we see we look at these one by one and we try and understand your submissions and your organizations based on your application. So we keep that in mind when we review. Thanks.
We have another question in the chat. With the tighter testing time, is there a no cost extension or the actual testing must be finished?
Yeah, the testing will have to be finished. And so just, this is also related to the FIT program itself and our own timelines as a program and an organization funded by Global Affairs. So yes, this particular intake, we're wanting organizations to be prepared to finish your testing no later than October, sometime in October, and final narrative and financial reports will be due November 15th, 2025. So you'll have to figure out what that looks like for your organization and understand that there may be the project may, if there were issues or challenges with the project, it could run into a situation where it may have to be stopped.
Mhm.
Okay, we have another question in the chat. Is it recommended that we do a rapid gender scan prior to submitting the concept note document?
Yes, the short answer is yes. We'd love you to be able, if you've done any kind of work in the community where you are testing, we'd like to understand what you know and how your solution was developed. So yes, a rapid gender scan will have you do sort of a secondary gender analysis. And I think that would be very helpful in understanding your work and understanding how you're assessing gender as part of this solution. So yeah.
Okay, we have a question here in French. If you want to go for that one, Christina.
Oh, sure. Est-ce qu'il y a des dépenses intelligibles pour le projet?
Do we have intelligible fees? What do you mean by intelligible? Do you mean non-admissible? Non-eligible? Hanta, you asked your question. What did you mean? What did you mean by intelligible?
Christina, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I'm just
Yes.
Okay.
Ineligible. Okay.
Oui, est-ce que vous voulez dans votre
Yes. If you wish,
le modèle du budget du
in the
financement conceptuel avec
budget
les
model for the concept note. So if you're the online system, we have a budget, we have a model for that budget for FIT. On one of the pages, you could see that you have non-eligible expenses for the project. So for example, one of the expense that is not eligible is overhead or administration fees that are not directly linked with the project. So there's a whole list included in the model, and you could look it up online. If you can't find it, you can always contact us and we will show you the document. We'll direct you to the document online.
And I do note that we're getting close to the cutoff time, but we still want to ask some questions. I'm not sure, Anna, do we still have some more questions? I think we can keep going if we want. And we also have a brief poll question we'd like people to answer as well. If they could maybe do on the side before.
Yes, we have another French question in the chat.
Oh, okay. Bonjour, de José. Okay, bonjour. Est-ce que les
José. Hi, do SMOs bring support with the FIT support, or does the project have to depend only on the FIT funds? Yes, the project must only be dependent on the FIT funds. If you have any other funds, all you have to do is explain that in your budget and in your application so that we better understand where your funds are coming from and how it will support your project.
So I think we just wanted to mention that, yeah, we've got a a very quick poll about the event online, just to perhaps help us with our next Q&A session that we'll do at the next stage of the application. So if you wouldn't mind putting in a comment on how we could improve or what went well. I'm not sure if we do have any other questions, but I will say that it's important to stay connected to FIT onto our newsletter, and you can sign up on our homepage. And you can also follow us on our social media challenges, LinkedIn, Facebook, or X, just to stay updated on information about the program or results from our other SMOs. And of course, all of that is on our website as well. But please do stay connected to get information from us. And certainly the deadlines that we posted on about the program application are online, and we will update them if there are changes. Yeah, and that's kind of it. Was there anything else I needed to add, Anna? Got a lot of things open on my screen, so.
I think that's it, and we don't have any more questions coming in, so.
No final questions. I guess maybe we could just mention that with the recording, we will send it back to you post-event. So in the next day or so, to anyone who's registered, if in case you want to listen to the Q&A again. We do think that, just encourage you to get into the application as soon as possible and start filling it out. You can save things as you go along. I think just get in there and I think you'll find that a lot of the questions and the information we're requesting is fairly straightforward. And we wish you all the best with your applications. We really look forward to finding out what your innovative solutions are and look forward to reviewing your applications.